Yes, it's that time again. It is MLR draft time, and a couple of different things this year. And what that's going to do is actually sort of affect how I do to preview it. First of all, just want to give you a heads up that I'll be part of the team that's on the live draft show that Major League Rugby is putting on, and along with Will Hooley, Alex Corbacero, and Ryan Fitzgerald. It's going to be a live show on draft night on ESPNU. So take a look at that. It's going to be fun, and that'll be on the 21st. So that's coming up really soon, Thursday. But I just wanted to let's talk a little bit about the draft overall this year. First of all, 140 plus, about 154, I think, players registered for the draft. And remember, if you're not drafted, if you're not picked in the 3 rounds of the draft, you're an undrafted free agent. You've gone through the draft process. You're now fine to just sign with any team. If you don't go through the draft process and you are a collegiate player and you want to sign with a pro team, with an MLR team, you have to wait a whole season to be able to do that. So that's kind of how they control that. There is a thing that MLR does, which is homegrown player. You can claim a player as homegrown. If they went to high school and through the youth program in your region, for example, or sometimes they claim players who are in college in their region. That on the positive side, I think that allows teams to, well, it's really more, it allows the players not to be forced to move if they don't want to. At the same time, so there's probably a conversation between the player and the team about somebody being homegrown. On the negative side, it could also stop somebody who actually does want to move to, somewhere else. He's spent his whole time, he played rugby the whole time in the same city in high school and then went to a local college, and then he's ready to break out and, say, go a couple of thousand miles away, and then he's called a homegrown player and he can't. Anyway, that is there. Not a single team in Major League Rugby claimed a homegrown player for this draft. So that's interesting. Obviously, we're down to 8 teams. San Diego and LA merged. New Orleans has suspended operations for this upcoming season, and Miami suspended operations. So what we have there is, I don't know, 100 to 130 players who are now not connected with a Major League Rugby team, who were, some of whom are playing serious rugby and playing a lot of minutes, and a couple of them are on the USA national team group that's at the PNC right now. Those players are not going to be in a re-entry draft or anything like that, a dispersal draft, nothing like that. They're just free agents now. So I think a bunch of them are going to sign with a team, and I think a bunch are going to say, not getting enough time, maybe I'm just going to stay in town, I've got a job, and just play locally in the city that I'm in anyway, and hope things get a little bit better. If they're in Southern California, they certainly might choose to do that because there is a team there. It's just it merged into one team. I think some people from overseas might just go back to their home country and say, this has been too difficult. Who knows? I don't really know. I got to tell you that. I haven't been calling them to say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But I think we will see some people signed, and I think that will affect the draft. So what we do have is me hitting you with a little bit of information, some stats, which I think will really kind of shake up perhaps how we think about the MLR draft. Also brought to you by Irish Rugby Tours. Touring is a great way to expose your players to the global nature of rugby. Go to Irish Rugby Tours. They don't just do Ireland. They do all kinds of different countries: Spain, Portugal, New Zealand, South Africa, the UK. That's just a smattering of what they can do for you. Go to irishrugbytours.com. And this video is also brought to you by Panther Rugby Academy, providing elite playing and training opportunities for players throughout the South and a more extended version of the South. Panther Rugby Academy, check them out. I've been critical of it because I say that American players don't get a lot of minutes. And I think that's still a fair criticism, and I still think that we need to see more American players on USA teams. But is going through the draft kind of, not worth it? In the sense that, are you not going to play? Well, I went through the numbers. I went through all the numbers in terms of the draft. This is the 6th draft that Major League Rugby has held. And so we got a lot of data on stuff. So one of the things, first of all, is total 183 players have been drafted. That doesn't mean that there are some that were signed. Some were signed as undrafted free agents. Several of them were. But the ones who have been drafted in the specific rounds, and there was a supplemental draft one year, 183 have been drafted. Of those, 73 never played a minute in Major League Rugby. I actually think that's a pretty good percentage. That means that 110 did. Now, you count, and I said, you know what? Let's have a look at how many played less than 80 minutes, less than one game's worth. It's 103. So still, however, I think like 80 players played more than 80 minutes. When we want to get up into the very heavy minute numbers, people playing 1,000 minutes a year or something like that, so you're looking at a season where you're starting to average well past half a game for every game that your team is played, then we don't see as many, but it is pretty interesting. So, for example, let's have a look at some of the minute records for the MLR draft. First of all, most minutes played by drafted players. Christian Dyer leads that right now with 3,711. Dyer just retired. He's had a great career. And some really interesting things about Dyer. So before we go through this, we're going to hop down to a couple of other things. Dyer also holds the record for the most minutes played by somebody who wasn't actually drafted in the first 3 rounds. He was drafted in a supplemental round early on, and so 3,711, most played by any drafted player, and he wasn't even drafted in the regular rounds. That list, which I said listed either you were not drafted, you were an undrafted free agent, or you're in the supplemental round, the next highest amount of minutes, 2,743. And I should say, by the way, these are I should round these up because I'm using various sources that I can't be sure 2,743. It might be 2,750. It might be 2,801. It might be 2,669. But it's about that. It's Connor Buckley, Xavier High School and Iona College. So that's really interesting too, is that he is really up there in total career minutes for someone who struggled to get minutes, first of all, and wasn't even drafted. He was not drafted, I think, if memory serves, partly because the New York club were pretty sure he was going to sign with them. So it's like, he's not going to sign with anyone else. He's going to sign with us. So we'll just not draft him. And actually, they traded their picks. And right after that is Ryan Reese, a scrum half out of Life University, and before that, Lake Travis High School. And he's had a great career as well, despite not actually going through the regular rounds of drafts. And finally, one more record that Dyer holds, which I'm having a hard time thinking that this is going to be broken, which is the most minutes played by a player who, in his rookie season, played 0 minutes. Dyer was drafted by New York. I don't think he ever played for New York. First year, 0 minutes, and then became a staple for Houston and New Orleans. So I think that's a fascinating record, though. The guy who played the most minutes, who's gone through the draft so far, wasn't drafted in the first 3 rounds and played 0 minutes in his rookie season. And so we've been having a look at players who don't play a lot their rookie season, and who out of those have leapt up into a regular job. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's go back to minutes played by players who were drafted. And we've got high first-round pick, Tavita Lepetti, is second behind Dyer and in the 3,550 range. And then right behind him was the number 1 pick, Connor Mooneyham, out of Life University, also right around that 3,400, 3,500 range. Both of those averaging a high number of minutes per year. And that'll be interesting to talk about as well. And fourth on that list is Sam Gala, another number 1 pick, another one like Dyer out of Cal. And he has already logged 3,100 minutes, even though he actually drafted fairly recently. I average those out per year for the guys who've played at least a couple of years, and the number one average is Sam Gullah. He's averaging over 1,000 minutes a season. So there are Americans who are playing minutes in Major League Rugby. With a caveat that I'm not sure I've covered all the bases here, but I'm pretty sure the U.S. player who's had the most minutes in Major League Rugby, regardless of draft or not draft, is Bryce Campbell, the Schultz Award winner out of Indiana. Was established international when Major League Rugby started, and through his career, he has played a little bit under 6,000 minutes, averaging over 1,100 minutes a season. And he's followed by Dylan Fawcett and then Cam Dolan, both of whom have just retired from international rugby. And then Mika Kruse, that's an interesting one, and Vili Helu. I also had to look at the rounds. What kind of minutes are players coming out of each round, first, second, third? Because this is the way we judge the teams. Do they know what they're doing when they are drafting first-round players? So Tavita Lopetti leads with 3,500 or so, followed by Connor Mooneyham. So those two, they were number one, first-round picks, and then Gala, and then the fourth most, Emmanuel Albert. Easy to forget about him, I think, because he won the Schultz Award in 2021 in a season that was disrupted a little bit by COVID, but he has been a steadfast player for Houston, and we'll hear more about him in a minute. Do lower round picks actually get time in Major League Rugby? Much less. I think when we talk about those 73 players who never played a minute, a lot of those are like third round guys. But in the second round, Colin Gross has become a regular for DC and logged 2,400 minutes, and he was a second round pick. Your biggest guy in the third round, Emerson Pryor out of Canada, 1,400 plus, and Jason Tidwell. Really good. He's done well. Third round pick, 1,400 minutes in Major League Rugby. This video is brought to you by Next Phase Rugby, which is an app that allows high school rugby players to connect with college rugby programs around the country. Those programs can be school supported, club, all kinds of different ones. 450 are already on the app, and thousands of collegiate hopefuls are also on the app. Download the app if you're a college, or if you are a high school player looking for a college, go to nextphaserugby.com. There's a discount code for the premium level for high school players at the bottom of the screen. And good luck with your college search. It's also brought to you by USA Rugby Foundation, which is an organization that supports grassroots rugby around the country, and your donation can help build this great game of ours. Who logged the most minutes in his rookie season? That's the thing. We talk about Dyer playing 0 minutes, and a lot of players might be on the bench and get just a little bit. How do they make up for that? They usually play in the local club. Maybe it's the ARP, maybe it's the MRP in the Midwest, or maybe it's somewhere else, the PRP, and maybe there's another RP that I missed, but they're trying to play. Hopefully they're playing rugby. They've got to play rugby. But Tavita Lopetti in his rookie season played 1,238 minutes. It's a fantastic season for him. That's pretty much a regular player's minutes. Right behind him, Gala, just maybe 5 minutes behind him. It's really, really close. Followed by Colin Gross, who, again, has just launched himself into a season being a lock flanker, versatile, hardworking, fit guy out of West Point and out of Spokane, Washington. That's a great one for him. And then the recent number one pick, Rick Rose, who's now without a team, but on the USA pool, he also topped 1,000. Those four topped 1,000. Junior Gaffa just under that out of Brown. But it's interesting that those top four, 3 of them are locks or lock flankers, and 1 Lopetti is center. I talk a lot about the colleges that teams, that players, drafted players come out of, and which colleges provide the most drafted players. And not only that, I wanted to see which ones translated into players who play. And not everybody who's drafted plays, and sometimes they don't play. It's not because they're not good enough. They might, have just picked up a pretty lucrative job in a town that doesn't have an MLR team, and they say, you know what, I really can't pass up that opportunity. That does happen. That's sometimes why you'll see players not register for the draft, but sometimes they register, they get drafted, and then they have to balance those opportunities. Still, the number one college in terms of number of drafted players, and I'm talking about just drafted here. If they signed as an undrafted free agent, I didn't count them here. Just drafted is, and I don't think anyone's surprised here, it's Lindenwood. 20 players have been drafted, followed by Life and St. Mary's, both with 11, and Cal with 9. Kutztown, really interesting that they had 9 as well, and then with 7, Central Washington. I didn't divide out the Canadian universities. There wasn't any university that had as many as 7, but in total, the Canadian universities had 18 draftees. So that's one thing to get drafted. The other thing is, did you play? And we had a look at total minutes and minutes per draftee for those universities. Total minutes and minutes per draftee, far and away, the leader there is Cal. Cal with over 10,000 minutes played in their careers for Cal players. Of course, Christian Dyer went to Cal, so he helps them with 37% of that, really. And about 1,100 a season. By the way, 1,100 a season, that's Bryce Campbell on his own. Just saying. So, yeah, I mean, like you look at it a little differently. Right behind, though, Life and Lindenwood. So a lot of Lindenwood players, but not all of them getting signed. And here's one of the things that has happened within the draft is that the teams have been learning a little bit about the rules that are associated with players from overseas. And sometimes they've made mistakes. They've gotten a player who, say, hasn't established residency or has, like a year and a half to go to do that. And then you have to get him a visa. And so what about that? And then there's a delay. Does that player play or something like that? That's certainly not everything for the Lindenwood players, but that is a reason why you might see a group of players not used. And over time, I've seen that the MLR general managers have become more and more educated about how to deal with that. And this year, I think you're going to see a lot of teams be much more buttoned down about residency issues. So I know it's a hot button issue. I really don't mean it to be to be like political or something like that. But if a player plays for an NCR team that does not register with USA Rugby, they can be in danger of not having their foreigner clock start. That's a danger. And actually, people at CRAA have helped NCR players try and straighten that out. But they're not informed always about that. There are players who are probably watching this video who are like, wait, what? Yeah, you've got to ask your coach. And if he's not telling you, then you've got to start calling around and asking other people, what are the rules with regard to this, my residency? Your residency clock is just a piece of the puzzle. You want to get to that residency so you qualify as a domestic player. Sure. But that's not the only thing, because you're still a foreigner as far as the United States government thinks, right? So you have to get a visa. And the P1 visa, which basically says you're sort of a professional level athlete or performer, because it's also used for entertainers. And thank you, John Veely at Veely Law in Oklahoma. You really should talk to him. But he sort of helped me out with this, and I've known John for a long time, and he's an expert in all of this kind of stuff. You get your P1 visa. It really helps if you've been an All-American, something like that, and especially if you've played for, like the USA Under-23, something like that. You can say, hey, look, I'm an international level, elite level player. I deserve a P1 visa. So what an MLR team wants is a player who qualifies as an American, which there are various qualifications that gets you there, including the whole residency thing, or the parentage thing, or where were you born, things like that. And you get a visa. Now, they might be willing to give up a foreigner spot on their roster, or their game day roster, for a year if they know the player is going to get to that residency thing. But if there is miscommunication, or a failure to communicate, or a failure to educate from coaches or administrators or organizations that don't want to tell you at least that there might be bad news, that's very important. Something that the players have to work out. And we've seen players, sadly, be unable to play domestically because of that, because they don't have the level to get a visa and they can't sign. And we'll see that. We'll look at some ramifications post-draft, but there will be some unfortunate ramifications on that. So then one of the things I wanted to talk about was the trajectory. Who has the best trajectory? Who was drafted? And that's a judgment thing, I think. But I wanted to have a look at somebody who, not like Lopetti or Gala, who immediately was going into the starting lineup, but somebody who started slowly and stayed with it and worked hard and built a situation where he could get more and more minutes. So I've got a graph here that talks about that. And what you'll see is this is a group of players, about 10 players, who I thought, had a trajectory. They started low in minutes, and they got higher and higher and higher. But this is not the best graph, and I think we need to get some people out of here. So players who started and moved up and then came down, we're going to get rid of a couple of them. So we'll get rid of Michael Matarazzo because he did go up and get a lot of playing time early, but then it's sort of Louis Satama. He's another one who was building minutes, and then things faded a little bit. And you can say the same about Damon Torres. You can say the same about Damon Torres and Cale Hodgson. These are guys who aren't exactly what I'm looking for, which is that upward angle. So this is who we end up with. You've got Connor Buckley, who, again, started a little bit slowly and worked hard to get minutes. And he goes up and he comes down a little bit, and he's sort of held steady in that mid, 700 range, something like that. I don't know if that's the full, launch that I'm looking for. Then you've got Peyton Talia-Alalio, kind of a weird one because he dropped off. He hooked on with Austin, and then he left to go play with the Glendale Raptors when they were playing in South America outside of Major League Rugby. So that's a little bit weird in terms of our graph. So he's not quite that guy. John Rizzo, I gotta say, very interesting story here, because here's a player very quietly has built himself a really nice career in Major League Rugby, now playing for Old Glory. Came out of IUPUI, really the story, I think, for a lower division team. Yes, they're in D1AA. They used to be a small college team, and they used to be in the lower divisions. So for John Rizzo, not rated, not thought of as a guy who is going to become a major professional, has actually built himself a really nice career. So now we come to the three that I think are the really great trajectories. Tomas Casares went from 0 minutes, bam, goes straight up like this perfect 45-degree angle up into, pushing toward close to 1,000 minutes in a season. Now in the USA pool, fantastic. The other guy, a bit of a surprise, Calixto Martinez, a Canadian who's just, again, hung in there, worked hard, got himself building minutes. But the guy that I think has been the best trajectory for me is Emmanuel Albert. Did mention him earlier, right? So Schultz Award winner out of Lindenwood, played in his high school rugby in Minnesota, and he still had a lot to learn. He showed up, but he was a really tough, physically hard, lock number 6 kind of guy, and just continued to build on his career every year, playing more. And in fact, as I understand it, he's the most capped Houston SaberCat. He's been with Houston the whole time, played over 60 games for them. But if you look at his numbers, he's gone from his rookie season 2022, 321 minutes played, still a pretty good rookie season, to 564 the next year. So close, very close to doubling that. And then up a little bit more, 657 or so, the mid 600s. And then this last year topped 1,000. So he's continued to be there and continued to do the work and the hard graft. At 26, he's kind of in the sweet spot for a player of his type. Like I said, a 6'5" guy who could be still a national team prospect. Haven't seen him on the national team yet, but he's just really entering that prime space for the big bruiser. 26 to 32, this is a great time for him to be logging those minutes, and he's been doing that on a team who's challenging for the championship. So a regular player playing a very tough position, playing it real hard, and earning more and more minutes and getting his team to the final. That's kind of a good story. So ultimately what I'm saying is I don't think you're doomed if you're trying to be drafted in Major League Rugby. Let's not talk about the money and how little you're paid or whatever it is. We know that there's going to be a struggle to find spots because there are all these free agents rolling around from the teams that have folded or merged. But if you are working hard and you are very good and you tick all the boxes and you're not costing anybody a foreigner spot, you still have a good chance to get some time. And if you are patient, because not everybody immediately jumps onto the field and for a professional team, there's nothing wrong with staying on the sideline for a year as long as you get rugby. As long as you make sure you're playing in a league during the fall to make sure you're seasoned, you're ready to go, things like that. A lot of players get drafted knowing that they still have one more semester, one more fall season to play. They do that as well. But the amount of time you get on the field is hugely important. And if we go back to that list of which teams have the most draftees out of the 183, so we have, very, very heavily skewed toward the CRAA teams simply because they play in the fall and the spring or the winter and the spring, and they play more games. And that's what GMs usually, not always, usually are looking for. And that's not to say you can't be successful if you play in a league where you end in the fall. Rick Rose is a great example, right? Number one pick. He's now on the national team pool, and he's been getting minutes. But you have to be a special person. You have to make up for that with your work rate and finding other games, trying to get yourself on all-star games, which Rose did, and tours, which Rose did. And that's how you work your way through. For everybody who has built a career where they're getting significant minutes every year after being drafted, you have my utmost respect because it's a ton of work. It's not a lot of money. And it's out of love and desire that you do that. And you need it. And we'll see how the draft goes. We've got another show coming up where we'll talk a little bit about the players who are available in each position. But thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for everybody watching. Thanks to our supporters. And we'll see you next time.